essentially we've seen an exponential shift in cloud adoption over the last 18 months. I think from the simple request from clients to help get them to the cloud, but I think also through to sort of full cloud-enabled business transformation from really pioneering clients who are trying to really look at how they move their IT towards a service offering from the cloud providers. And I think, interestingly, this hasn't just been generated from the needs that you would traditionally associate with cloud around scalability, flexibility, ability to innovate, but also now as we've gone through these 18 months toward that hybrid ways of working and using cloud technologies to really help us in our future of work.
So over the last 18 months, I've really noticed an uptick in the amount of clients who want to talk about their ESG goals and wanting to find ways to track and measure their progress, but first of all to understand where they are making the biggest impact. Now that's created two sub-trends. Firstly is the talent crunch. So organizations are increasingly struggle to retain and recruit some of those very, very niche data and analytics skill sets. And so increasingly look to partnerships to augment some of those skills. And the second sub-trend is around data quality. So for organizations who have sustained their investment in analytics over the last 5 to 10 years, they're now really able to bend the curve and get better return on investment on their analytics efforts over the last couple of years. But for the other organizations who haven't, they're really doubling down now on getting their data quality improved throughout their systems and also sharing that across their organizational silos with the platforms that they now have invested in.
It feels good, but very strange to be back here in person. The last 18 months have been difficult for everybody. I think the combination of Zoom, Teams and other type of virtual meetings have been great, but actually getting back in person has been fantastic just to see people. I think the key things I've missed over the last 2 years since we did our last in-person event is just that connectivity. I think the market's evolved quite a lot. The pandemic has taught us new ways to interact and play with data, and therefore sharing those experiences, sharing those insights today and over the next couple of days is going to be invaluable.
In the last 18 months, we've seen a complete transformation of the analytics and the data landscape in the public sector, driven largely by the unfortunate pandemic that we have all experienced. The rise of COVID has meant that the public sector, as well as other organizations, of course, have had to react very quickly to changes in terms of how people work, how people operate, changes in how the NHS needs to operate to respond very quickly to the demands, and all these changes are informed by data. And what we found is that the public sector as a whole has become far, far more data driven. What we found is that actually perhaps traditional silos in data have been broken down because we've had to share pandemic information, for example, across a whole range of organizations within the public sector. And we've also seen a whole heap of new capabilities being developed and being built. The need for data and analytics platforms has never been greater, and we've never seen greater demand. What we found in the pandemic is actually there wasn't the data in existence required to make some of these decisions because we didn't have historical data on things like COVID. And so we saw a rise in the need to create data through simulation and through digital twinning and things like that. So I would say, having worked in the public sector for the last 20 years, the leaps and bounds in the data space that we have seen in the 18 months we hadn't seen for the decade previously. And going forward, I can see this demand and this desire to become much more data-driven be sustained.
The technology is very relentless. It's keeping on changing all the time. What has been interesting is how the technology ecosystems have enabled a dynamic shift towards a behavioral change. Most importantly, it's been really good to see how technology ecosystems are much more eager to involve a three-way tripartite between themselves, the customers, as well as subject matter experts like Deloitte. And what we're now seeing is more of an evolution from just tech ecosystems to an all-encompassing business ecosystem that contains all the different three parties I talked about. But more importantly, it's driving more significant value for not just customers, but also the wider society.
In today's world, we see the volumes of data, the complexity has gone up. And with advances in technology, we are able to better manage not just the data in itself, but where it comes from, the lineage. We're able to manage it with a much more robust audit trail. We're able to manage what it is used for and who it is used by, which actually makes a very big difference in today's world where you talk about data centricity or data monetization, because now you need to manage data as well as you would manage currency.